Hey, Dustin Tippett here, financial advisor with Jazz Wealth Managers. How you doing today? Are you about to get paid? You know, for the second time in my lifetime, a lot of people can't say that, it appears that the government may be looking to send out checks to everybody. If you're not aware of what's going on out there, it's pretty rough, and it's expected to get rougher in terms of the economy. Now, as of right now, today, when I'm recording this video, you're watching it, March 18th, 2020. This is not guaranteed. This is just what's being discussed. And I thought, you know, my job is to tell you how things work, right? And how all your finances and your dough works. So this is going to affect you, and I want to update you on how this works. When I was, well, let's just say I had more hair, right? I had more hair. We weren't here doing these shows, but when I was much younger, the world went through a financial crisis where much worse than what we're dealing with now, which is weird, is what's happening now. But what happened was things got so bad in the economy, the government said, let's give the money to the banks to make sure that they can stay stable. That didn't work, boost the economy. So they said, well, let's give the money to the banks even more, and maybe they'll lend it out to people because rates are low. They'll go lend it, people will borrow money, the economy will stimulate again. It'll be great. And they came up with a fancy name for it, and they were all excited. It didn't work because the bank said, why would I loan it to somebody that doesn't have a job, has no job prospects, when we could just invest it in the market and we'll make more money? So that's what the banks did. The government said, crap, that didn't work. Okay, let's do this. Let's send every American a check. And they actually, I remember vividly George Bush being on TV telling people, go spend the money. We're going to send it to you. Go spend it. We'll stimulate the economy by giving the money to the people. Well, there was a lot of catches to that. And I actually got a check. Me and my wife did. We got a $1,500 check. It was a physical check that was printed out to us from the U.S. Treasury. And I don't remember what we did with it, but we got a check. And so if that happens again, I wanted you to know just kind of where you stand. Will you get a check? What rules will they likely put in place here? And I'm largely basing this off of what happened last time. It's oddly, timing-wise, oddly close to the way things were before. It is early in the year. It's not quite tax time to report for the previous year, although you're likely doing your taxes. But one of the criteria was that you had to file a tax return for the previous year, which would have been 2007 in that case. So you had to file a tax return. If you did not file a tax return, then they said, okay, you still can file a tax return. Even if you don't have to, you still have to file. We need you to file. They gave you a special form. If you were not otherwise obligated to file a tax return, you still had to file. They sent a postcard in the mail. You filled out a couple lines and you sent it back. I don't know if they'll still do postcards these days, but that's how it was. So you got a special form. I think it was a 1040A, if I'm not mistaken, was a special little postcard one there. So that's how they did that. Now, you had to have had a tax liability in the previous year. Even if you weren't required to file a tax return, you had to have a tax liability, meaning you had to have some kind of income that was taxed, right? If you didn't meet the minimum criteria to actually file a return, you still had to have that income there. In other words, you had to have taxable income for the year. I remember vividly that rental income did not count, and that was a hot button topic because people were buying 10 homes and renting them out or flipping them or whatever. So income that you made from a rental property did not count as income. I don't know if that counts in this one as well or whatever. I just want to point that out, that not all income counted as taxable income. So how did this work? In 2007, what it was you had to have a minimum income of $3,000. Didn't matter if you were single, married, filing jointly, didn't matter. You just had to have $3,000 of qualified income. Earnings, you know, wages, tips, how they normally word it. Social Security counted as well. And so you had to have that, what was the other one? Railroad retirement income. That was also included as well. But you had to have at least $3,000. I'm assuming with a little bit of inflation, they're going to probably have a higher number. Not everybody, you won't get a check if you had no taxable income. That was a big debate back then as well. The types of income that didn't count was SSI. So if you got SSI, that did not count as taxable income. So you had to have $3,000 worth of taxable income. Couldn't come from SSI, couldn't come from pensions, but it could come from railroad retirement savings or pensions. It could come from Social Security, things like that. Or if you had a job and, last year and you made some money there. You also had to have a valid Social Security number, and you could not be a non-resident alien. I imagine that's going to be a debate this time, given that we're in the middle of a pretty intense election season. But nonetheless, you had to have a valid Social Security number in order to get this payment. Now, some questions that I've gotten, if they do pay this money out, does it affect my ability to contribute to a Roth. Maybe that puts you over the max income for the Roth IRA. Does it affect my Social Security benefits in terms of putting me over the income there, and now my Social Security is taxable, everything like that? No, flat out, this was a one-time payment to you, at least 2008 was, a one-time payment to you that didn't affect any other assistance programs that you had, and it didn't affect like your ability to contribute to a Roth and things like that, so that didn't matter. You got extra money for having a qualified child under the age of 17. We had one at the time, so we got an extra $300 to bring our total to $1,500, the check. There was one solid check there. And so that was that one. I would imagine there'd be something like that again, because all of our kids having to stay home, they're not at school and everything. And so there may be some cost associated with that. I'm sure they'll work that into the mix, but that was one of them. Now, not everybody got a payment, right? I talked about the low income end of things. The upper level of income people didn't get a check. So you won't see celebrities getting a check unless they just lie to us and they don't have the money that we think they have. But there was a phase out. This is how it worked. You got either $600 if you were single. You got $1,200 married filing jointly. There was also a reduced flat payment as well. I don't think that applied to a whole lot of people, but there was a reduced flat payment there. Then the payment started to phase out as your income went up. So if your adjusted gross income was over $75,000, your payment went down 5% as your income went up. So people that made, if you were single and you made $200,000, you likely got $50, if anything at all. There might have been a minimum there, I'm not sure. So you didn't get the full amount there. That was that back then. If you were married filing jointly, it was $150,000. So you got the full benefit as long as you were eligible for everything that I talked about. You got the full benefit, but over $150,000 adjusted gross income, it went down by 5%. I expect that there'd be something like that in the works as well. Bottom line is, it was kind of like a history lesson, right? I don't know if it was interesting to you, but we're talking about it again, right? There's a $1 trillion package being thrown around. Of that, $500 to $550 billion as of now is being talked about as either direct payments, which is a fancy way of saying just sending you money, or tax cuts. They haven't said direct payments or direct payments plus. What they've said is direct payments or tax cuts. So really expect that it's probably not going to be some large number like $1 trillion that they hand out to everybody. It's much less than that. I saw that on social media today where people were taking $1 trillion divided by the last known number of people in the States and figuring out like $3,000, $4,000. It is not going to be that much. I would be shocked, and I will come back and restate my apologies if it is. That's not what they're doing. It's $500 billion. Possibly the full $500 billion as direct payments, but as of now, it's not guaranteed there. So we'll see what happens there. I wish you all the best in terms of safety out there, and I hope you're not being hit too hard with everything going out there. Everything is pretty much closed where we're at: restaurants, offices, buildings, things like that. It's just incredible what's happening out there. But if they do push out a paycheck to you, I'll come back and update you on the details, but that gives you some sort of framework as to how things will probably work going forward, and I'll keep updating you guys. I really appreciate you guys watching. If I helped you in some way today or just took you down memory lane from back in the day, the financial crisis, hit the subscribe button. I really appreciate that. Helps us out here, and you guys have a great rest of your day.
Why should you choose Jazz Wealth as your retirement or long-term investing service? Our portfolios are managed by us, not some faceless mutual fund manager. Our private classes will teach you everything about investing and getting your dough straight. Best of all, our fiduciary standard means your best interest comes before ours.